What up YouTube, Specroid here with another video, and this time it's part 8 of me reviewing every Looney Tunes cartoon. This is the first video that I'll be doing with this editing style, and I think it'll be much more entertaining with it. So let's just get to the cartoons. I Go For You. Another Goofy Gophers cartoon. It's been a while since we've last seen them. Anyway, this one is a bit of a departure from their usual shtick. It is not as good, but there are some things to like about it. This time the Gophers have their food stolen by a truck that is working for a factory called Ajax, which creates canned foods. Interestingly, even as one of the Gophers does something to annoy the other one, they still remain polite to each other. Some of the ways they navigate the conveyor belt are pretty clever too. The cartoon even ends on a somewhat lighthearted note. It's not the best of the Goofy Gophers, but it's still pretty decent. Rating 3 out of 5 stars with the title of Worth Watching. Feline Frame Up. Wow, they finally did it. They managed to make Claude unlikable. I thought they would never do it. Anyway, not only does he force Pussyfoot out of her bed, he frames Mark Anthony for trying to eat her up, and the owner beats the shit out of Mark Anthony and throws him out. Claude is a total bastard in this cartoon, and his actions are inexcusable. So it makes it all the more satisfying when Mark Anthony tries to fuck with Claude and beat the shit out of him. The ending is so fucking satisfying too, because the owner finally threw Claude out. That was gratifying. Rating 4 out of 5 stars with the title of Awesome. Wild Wife. So this seems like a critique of the dynamic of a male in a marriage. I got to commend them for doing something like that during a time when marriage was clearly designed for only the male to have the authority in marriages. Although unfortunately now women have been liberated to the point where they're the ones who are even worse in marriages than men are. So not sure if I should really be praised them for that. But it goes to show that the wife did a whole bunch of shit while the husband was away. Some of it was chores, but some of it wasn't. Like buying a lot of shit from the store and having some ice cream. I will say, I do like how it later admits that women have problems too. Like buying a bunch of expensive shit. But yeah, it does point out that, rightfully, that it is ignorant to assume that women are always lazy and not getting things done in the household. And sometimes they forget. Everyone forgets. It is actually kind of satisfying to see the husband get hit on the head because he definitely has that sexism that was indicative of the time. I actually found myself enjoying this one a bit more than I thought. Rating 3 out of 5 stars with the title of Worth Watching. No Barking. This is another cartoon that has no dialogue. Well, except for the frankly unnecessary cameo from Tweety, where he says his famous lines, and to be honest, it's not all that good. But that's not the only reason that it's not that good. Great. There are a few decent slapstick gags, but most of the cartoon is just Claude Cat having a dog bark at him and him flying through the air. I've seen that joke before, and it's not that funny to do over and over again. The ending is also pretty lackluster. This could have been at least decent, but the ending dragged down the experience significantly. Once again, not horrible, but not great either. Rating 2 out of 5 stars with the title of OK Black Staying Power. Bugs and Thugs. This is a pretty damn good one. Basically, Bugs gets into a car only to find that he has joined a couple of gangsters who just stole the money from the bank. When Bugs finds out, he basically fucks with the gangsters. There's some really fucking good gags. The phone gag was absolutely hysterical. The lighting of the oven is also a really fucking good one, and a dark one. It also leads to a hilarious and satisfying ending, so yeah, it's a pretty good one. Rating 4 out of 5 stars with the title of Awesome. The Cat's Ba. So the first joke of this cartoon is a shot of Pepe's hands getting the cork of a wine bottle. That joke really seems like Looney Tunes just fucking with the Hayes office. That can't possibly be a metaphor for a cock. Unfortunately, that's really the only funny gag in this cartoon. Most of it is Pepe telling this a story of getting a cat and, of course, acting rapey toward her. I just checked out when they did this. The camel gag was decent, I guess. But yeah, I'm so fucking sick of Pepe. I'm not offended by these, I'm just bored by them. It's the same fucking joke over and over again. The ending doesn't really help me like this cartoon. So yeah, this one was pretty crummy. Rating 2 out of 5 stars with the title of OK Black Staying Power. Designed for leaving. So the premise of this cartoon is that Daffy tries to sell a futuristic house to Elmer. But when Elmer says no, he just makes it futuristic. Actually, you don't even know that it's futuristic until Elmer comes back. It is actually a pretty interesting premise for a cartoon, even if it has a somewhat misleading title. The gags in here are pretty decent. The writing is pretty damn good. I think this one is in VistaVision, but I'm not sure. But if it is, the novelty is nice, because all the other ones were in the standard theater format of the classic era. It is not the best one, but it is pretty good with a great ending punchline. Rating 3 out of 5 stars with the title of Worth Watching. Bell Hoppy. You know, even though this is another Hibbity Hopper cartoon, it is actually more unique than the other ones. It is a group of cats running into Hibbity and finding out that he is more trouble than they thought. So after Sylvester was rejected by them, they allow him to join the club to help them catch Hibbity. Sure, the club's name is fucking stupid, and it is also really stupid that the cats think that a kangaroo is a giant mouse, and neither are stupid in a funny way. That being said, I have to give them credit for being a bit more creative, and the slapstick is decent. It even has an ending where Sylvester actually won. The only other one that I can think of where he won was Catty Cornered, sort of. Anyway, I was pleasantly surprised by this one. Rating 3 out of 5 stars with the title of Worth Watching. No Parking Hare. So this time Bugs has to deal with a slimy bastard who wants to build a highway over his home. Bugs tries to compromise, but the man insists on building it. So Bugs decides to fuck the whole operation up. It leads to some pretty fucking hilarious gags with explosives, but the crane gag is by far the best gag, and the most creative and unexpected. Eventually, the US decides to compromise and let Bugs have his home near a highway. It's a pretty good one. Almost like a commentary on interstate travel, and I don't have much else to say. Rating 4 out of 5 stars with the title of Awesome. Dr. Jekyll's Hyde. This is the last cartoon to feature Spike and Chester. Interestingly, we have Sylvester turning into some monster-type cat, which is where the title comes from. This actually leads to some pretty decent gags of Sylvester beating the shit out of Spike. It is kind of a reverse of the Hibbity Hopper cartoons, or like T for Two, except Sylvester is a more active participant in the carnage. But I have to knock some points for the ending. It was not as good, but the cartoon as a whole is interesting at least. Rating 3 out of 5 stars with the title of Worth Watching. Claws for Alarm. This is actually a pretty damn good cartoon. It has Sylvester teamed up with Porky, which is not a pairing you see often. But for some odd reason, Sylvester is completely silent throughout the cartoon. But I do like the idea. Porky decides to stay at a haunted hotel, but he doesn't realize the hotel is haunted and there are ghosts trying to attack them and Sylvester. But Sylvester knows. Unfortunately, Porky sees Sylvester as fucking crazy and says that he shouldn't be afraid of this place, even though Sylvester has every reason in the world to be afraid of this place. The gags revolving around this are pretty fucking good. But on top of that, Sylvester does kind of win when he tricks Porky into leaving the place. That is a breath of fresh air considering that Sylvester rarely, if ever, wins. Honestly, I prefer him being paired with Porky than him being paired with really any other character. But yeah, this might actually dethrone Doggone Cats as being my favorite Sylvester cartoon. Rating 4 out of 5 stars with the title of Awesome. Little Boy Boo. This one I'm kind of mixed on. It's another one of these cartoons where the male character, more specifically Foghorn, desires love from a woman only to find out that she is more trouble than she's worth. That is a concept that will never not be welcome for me. Of course, it usually involves a kid who gets on the male character's nerves. This one is not quite as well done as his better half, though. The biggest problem I have with this cartoon is that the kid is not really that annoying. He is vaguely autistic and has his own interests. While Foghorn tries to get him to play baseball even though he clearly doesn't want to play, Foghorn also kind of mocks his way of making an airplane. Foghorn comes off as more of a dickhead than he probably should be. I would have liked the ending better if the kid was actually fucking obnoxious and just the worst. But as is, he just comes off as kind of a bastard in this cartoon. His better half does this concept way better. Rating 2 out of 5 stars with the title of OK but lacks staying power. Devil May Hare. So this is the first appearance of the Tasmanian Devil, but in this cartoon he talks with incomplete sentences. Anyway, as for the cartoon itself, it's alright. The best gag is probably the bubblegum gag, but the gag where Bugs tries to get a deer away from the Tasmanian Devil is also fucking gold. He insults the Tasmanian Devil standing right next to him. The contraption gag could have been a bit better, and I'm also not a fan of how Bugs finally gets him away, but I do like the final line from Bugs, so I will say it is a pretty decent cartoon. Rating 3 out of 5 stars with the title of Worth Watching. Muzzle Tough. Just another fucking Tweety cartoon. I don't even know what to say about this one. It is just the same old shit of Sylvester doing nothing wrong, and in this cartoon it is the most blatant, but still going through absolute fucking misery. The running gag of the dog throwing Sylvester out is not that funny, and it gets old really quick. Tweety's cutesy lines are probably the worst they have ever been. I also have to ask, what the fuck is wrong with the humans who just let their dogs tear cats to fucking pieces? In real life, those dogs would have been put down. The ending gag, I will admit, is actually pretty funny, but it's not enough to redeem this cartoon. Rating 2 out of 5 stars with the title of OK but lacks staying power. The Oily American. Yeah, I don't really care for this one. It is about a Native American who owns a mansion with a butler and tries to hunt down a moose. Many people would find this cartoon offensive, and they're not entirely wrong, but that's not why this cartoon is not my favorite. I just found that the gags were not that funny. Now, the slapstick bits are kind of funny, but they come toward the middle of the cartoon. The cartoon also ends in a fucking aggravating way, where Mo Heekin, who's the main character, pretty much loses and gets spanked by the butler, who pretty much wanted to quit. Not really a happy ending. So yeah, I wouldn't say this is the worst cartoon, but I'm not rewatching this one anytime soon. Rating 2 out of 5 stars with the title of OK but lacks staying power. Bewitched Bunny. This ain't that bad of a Bugs cartoon. It is about him entering the Hansel and Gretel story and going after the witch. I love the opening gag where Bugs almost says, "Why, that dirty old bitch." Admittedly, most of the gags are not the greatest. I guess the prince joke was okay, even though it was kind of shoehorned in. But the ending gag where the witch chases Bugs is kind of entertaining. The ending gag is actually pretty clever. The witch turns into a girl rabbit, and Bugs says, "Well, I guess they're all witches inside." It's funny because there's actually some truth to that, even though I hate to admit it. Anyway, it's a pretty decent cartoon. Rating 3 out of 5 stars with the title of Worth Watching. Satan's Waiting. I know a lot of people like this cartoon, but I find this one so stupid. First of all, the concept of Sylvester going to hell is stupid. I guess the only reason he would go to hell is because he's violent, but if anything, Tweety should go to hell because Tweety is way more violent than Sylvester, even in some of his more cutesy cartoons. Oh, that's right, religion makes no sense. Anyway, I guess that it is kind of clever that Sylvester has 9 lives, so that means he has more chances of getting Tweety. It is really stupid, though, that one of the ways he loses them is because is being scared. Being scared, even intensely, is not enough to kill you. But even when he tries to play it safe because he only has one life left, he still dies. It is so fucking stupid. This is just a painful reminder that the universe hates Sylvester. Now, some of the gags are pretty good, but not enough to have me ignore the ridiculous and cruel premise. Rating 2 out of 5 stars with the title of Okay But Lacks Staying Power. Stop Lookin' Hassan. Another Roadrunner and Wile E. Coyote cartoon. This one is not as good as the previous ones with them, but it has its moments. The dynamite gag was pretty good. The part when Coyote picks up a sign that says, "Stop in the name of humanity," is actually pretty funny. There's not as much slapstick in this one, but the running gag with Coyote crashing into the wall and the Roadrunner carving "That's all, folks" was a damn good gag. It's actually a pretty decent cartoon. Rating 3 out of 5 stars with the title of Worth Watching. Yankee Doodle Bugs. This one I'm kind of mixed on. It is about Bugs trying to get his nephew Clyde to study for a test. So the way he does it is he tells the story of how rabbits played a huge part in the Revolutionary War. Other than the rabbits, the details are pretty accurate for the most part. The only problem is that Clyde has to remember specific details of certain battles in the war. Because of that, Clyde fails the test, and the cartoon seems to frame Bugs as an idiot for teaching him that way. Ironically, teaching kids that way actually does make them learn better. With the breakdown at the end, it's almost like this cartoon is apologetic to the controlling way our education system is set up. I find that pretty fucking insulting. The tragedy of this is that there are some damn good gags, but the ending actually ruins what could have been a great cartoon. Rating 2 out of 5 stars with the title of Okay But Lacks Staying Power. Gone Batty. This one is about baseball, more specifically about a team called the Schnooks, who are losing the game. So they decide to bring in Bobo the elephant, who is the team's mascot. There's some pretty fucking great slapstick gags. It is also a really creative and charming cartoon with some damn good voice acting from Mel Blanc. The ending is even for once actually satisfying. That has been rare lately. I also laughed consistently, which has also been rare lately. Anyway, it's a pretty good one. Rating 4 out of 5 stars with the title of Awesome. Goo Goo Goliath. This is basically a mouse divided except with Sylvester, and it is with humans. They even have the drunk stork gag used way too much. Much like that cartoon, it is really lame and not that funny. Come on, a giant baby is not as fucking funny of a premise as the writers think it is. The voice acting is pretty good, but I don't give a shit about that. It's not that good of a cartoon. Rating 2 out of 5 stars with the title of Okay But Lacks Staying Power. By Word of Mouse. This seems like a cartoon about educating people about capitalism. Much of it revolves around a German mouse not knowing about capitalism and being taught about it by another mouse. The mouse does explain it pretty well, but there's also some slapstick when Sylvester comes and tries to attack the mice. Though not a lot, and the animation is a bit more limited, much like the previous cartoon, which coincidentally was directed by Fritz Fling. The ending gag was also kind of weird. The mother mouse says that she's a victim of mass production. That is not entirely accurate, because laissez-faire capitalism doesn't require massive breeders. It just requires enough people to keep buying in again and again. But overall, it is a pretty decent cartoon that's at least an improvement over the previous one. Rating 3 out of 5 stars with the title of Worth Watching. From A to Z. This is a really good cartoon. It is about a kid named Ralph who finds school so boring that he daydreams a lot. It features a lot of daydreaming sequences that are very artistic and imaginative, and so fucking entertaining. I particularly love the math sequence. It shows Ralph using the numbers as weapons to fight against other numbers. As a student who always hated math, this is exactly what I wanted to do to those fucking numbers. But the other sequences are also really good, like a Western shootout and the boat operation to find a fish or something, and the boxing tournament. Amazingly, they all manage to tie into the things that are happening in the class, which is a nice touch. I also like the ending. It is time for Ralph to leave because the bell rang. But Ralph says, "I will be back," in kind of an angry tone. This cartoon shows why most students hate school. It is also a really good commentary on the American education system. And that is everything Yankee Doodle Bugs should have been. I recommend it. Rating 4 out of 5 stars with the title of Awesome. Quack Shot. Oh, we haven't had a Daffy cartoon in a while. This time he's up against Elmer Fudd, who is trying to hunt for ducks. I find it odd that most of the slapstick consists of Daffy getting blown up. Elmer clearly tries to kill ducks, so I don't know how the fuck that is supposed to be satisfying. That being said, the slapstick is pretty damn good, and it ends with Elmer getting blown up with a bunch of dynamite, which is pretty satisfying. Elmer does turn to fishing, but that turns out to be the same deal as ducks. Overall, it's not the best Daffy cartoon, but it's still pretty damn good. Rating 4 out of 5 stars with the title of Awesome. My Little Duckaroo. Another cartoon where Daffy is a Western hero and Porky is the comedic sidekick. It sounds good on paper, but in execution it's pretty poor. Most of the gags are pretty boring. I may have been too hard on Drip Along Daffy. That one at least had better slapstick. I cannot say the same thing about this one. It is also pretty fucking stupid how Porky doesn't even help Daffy. It is almost like he doesn't even give a shit. They had a chance to make a really good Western cartoon with Daffy, but they fucked up. A pretty bad cartoon. Rating 1 out of 5 stars with the title of Horrible. Sheep Ahoy. Another Ralph Wolf and Sam Sheepdog cartoon. This is a fucking great cartoon. It has really fucking great slapstick. The boulder gag, the TNT gag, the submarine gag are all damn good moments. This one is arguably better than Don't Give Up the Sheep. I still like that one, but this one is a bit stronger. Though it does have a pretty similar ending and beginning to that cartoon. It has Ralph and Sam saying good morning to each other, and it ends with Sam beating the shit out of Ralph. It is a great cartoon that's mostly dialogueless. Rating 5 out of 5 stars with the title of Epic. Baby Buggy Bunny. This one seems like one that I would hate or find mediocre, but it actually ain't too bad. It is about a criminal named Babyface Minster, who's a greedy bastard who robs banks and disguises himself as a baby to get Bugs to help him avoid the cops. Bugs does comply until he finds out that who Minster really is. I will admit the slapstick at that point could have been better, but it at least ends on a pretty satisfying note. I will always appreciate that when it comes to Merry Melodies / Looney Tunes. Rating 3 out of 5 stars with the title of Worth Watching. Pizzico Pussycat. This is a pretty decent cartoon. It is about a couple named Mr. and Mrs. Jones who have a cat who hears a mouse play on the piano. But after a botched attempt to catch the mouse, Mr. and Mrs. Jones see the cat and think the cat is playing the piano, so they sign the cat up to play in the concert. The cat takes advantage of that opportunity by promising that he will not eat the mouse if he keeps playing for him. I love how even after the concert thing fails, the cat finds a way to play music. Instead, he plays the drums, albeit not the best, but not bad by any means. This time, Mr. Jones decides that it would be best if the press doesn't know. The limited animation is a step backwards, but it's still not a bad cartoon by any means. Rating 3 out of 5 stars with the title of Worth Watching. Feather Dusted. I may have said this was a repeat of Little Boy Boo, but this cartoon actually goes in a completely different direction. At first, the chick doesn't really want to play the activities that Foghorn wants him to engage in, but he eventually starts to be an active participant. The chick even uses math problems to figure out how to pull off what Foghorn wants him to do. There's also some damn good slapstick, and it has one hell of an ending where Prissy scolds Foghorn for his escapades and warns him that they will get the better of him. But they already did. Fucking genius. Now, it's not my favorite, but it ain't too bad. Rating 3 out of 5 stars with the title of Worth Watching. Pest for Guests. Another Goofy Gophers cartoon. They've been rare lately, but this one is not too bad. This time the Goofy Gophers face Elmer Fudd. Admittedly, the animation is a bit weak, but there are some good gags. The dynamite balloon gag and the gag where the acorns fill Elmer's house are by far the best ones in the cartoon. I will admit the earlier Goofy Gophers cartoons are better, but this one is pretty decent. Rating 3 out of 5 stars with the title of Worth Watching. Beanstalk Bunny. This is an interesting cartoon. It has Bugs and Daffy in the story of Jack and the Beanstalk, and Elmer playing the giant. I fucking love the fact that Bugs and Daffy team up to stop Elmer. That will never not be welcome. Apparently, Daffy says the money isn't everything, which is odd for him to say, but I guess we haven't really reached the greedy Daffy yet. There isn't a whole lot of slapstick, but I do like when Elmer trips on Bugs' feet. It also has a fucking weird ending, but it is overall a pretty decent cartoon. It is almost a fourth entry in the Hunting trilogy. Rating 3 out of 5 stars with the title of Worth Watching. All Fouled Up. Well, we have another Foghorn cartoon, but this time we're back with the Barnyard Dog and Henry Hawk. I was missing those two. While I wouldn't say this is their best effort, it's still not too bad. There were some parts that made me laugh. In fact, Foghorn might have some of the funniest dialogue I've heard yet. Sure, like many of the cartoons we're looking at now, the slapstick is pretty fucking weak, but I actually laughed in certain parts, which is more than I can say for the ones with Prissy and her chick. Rating 3 out of 5 stars with the title of Worth Watching. Stork Naked. I'm honestly shocked that not only did I actually enjoy this cartoon, but it was even made during that time, let alone got past the Hayes office. And no, it's not because there's a ton of nudity, it's for other reasons. It is about a stork coming to Daffy's house to deliver a duck to him. But Daffy doesn't want a kid, because Daffy knows that having children multiplies suffering. And it's not really noble to have children. I fucking love that they went that direction. But the best part is that the cartoon agrees with me. The slapstick is fucking good, and I love that it ends with Daffy flying the hatched duck back to the stork. The only thing that I dislike is the reuse of the drunk stork gag. But other than that, it's still a pretty damn good cartoon. Rating 4 out of 5 stars with the title of Awesome. Lighthouse Mouse. Wow. They actually managed to do something different with the Hippity Hopper formula. I'm shocked. I will say the beginning gags are kind of clever, and I like the lighthouse. The parrot counting the literal seconds it takes to stop the mouse and Hippity Hopper was the best fucking gag in the cartoon. It is still aggravating that Sylvester can't seem to get that fucking kangaroo and mouse, but it has a pretty good ambiguous ending. I will say this is probably the strongest Hippity Hopper cartoon. Rating 3 out of 5 stars with the title of Worth Watching. Sahara Hare. Another Bugs and Yosemite Sam outing, but this time they're in the Sahara Desert. This is a pretty fucking good one. The setup of Bugs trying to go to the Miami beach actually makes more sense than in this one, because Miami is pretty hot, and there is sand. But not as much as the Sahara Desert. But what really makes this cartoon good is the slapstick. It is really fucking good, and Bugs and fighting Sam will always be entertaining. The start is a little slow, but when the slapstick comes, it is satisfying. And I even kind of like the cameo from Daffy. It's a pretty good one. Rating 4 out of 5 stars with the title of Awesome. Sandy Claus. Another Tweety cartoon. I don't know why this one was nominated for an Oscar. It is just more of Sylvester going through absolute fucking misery, all because he's hungry. The only difference is that he's on a beach. I guess the boat gag is kind of funny, as well as the motor ski gag. But even when Sylvester actually tries to save Tweety and be heroic, he is still punished for his efforts. See, Sylvester's just not that bad of a guy, especially compared to Hubie and Bertie and Pepe. Not a big fan of this cartoon. At least we don't see Granny in a bikini, so it could have been worse. Rating 2 out of 5 stars with the title of OK but lacks staying power. The whole idea. This one is pretty good. It is about a scientist named Calvin Q who invents a portable hole. But man, the dude must really hate his wife if he doesn't even want to be in the same room as her. To be fair, she plays the victim card. Anyway, Calvin invented the hole for good, but eventually someone steals it and uses it for evil. Mostly robbing banks, but also for peeking inside a burlesque show, which, to be honest, isn't that evil. But Calvin finds a clever way of using the hole. I really like how he doesn't just get rid of the hole, even after all that. Any other cartoon would do that. I also find it so fucking funny when Calvin tries to get rid of his wife, but not even Satan wants to deal with her. It implies she is that insufferable. Rating 4 out of 5 stars with the title of Awesome. Ready, Set, Zoom. This one is better than the last Wile E. Coyote and Roadrunner cartoon. There are a lot more explosions at least. Admittedly, the start is a little too slow for my liking, but it gets going later on. I feel like some of the gags could have been a bit better, like the weight joke, but there are some really fucking good ones, like the glue gag, the lasso dynamite gag, and the rocket gag. Even the ending gag was pretty clever and unexpected, so overall, a good effort from the duo. Rating 4 out of 5 stars with the title of Awesome. Hairbrush. So this cartoon is basically an actual role reversal of Elmer Fudd and Bugs Bunny. But unlike the harebrained hypnotist, Elmer doesn't really do it out of revenge. He just acts like Bugs for no reason. When Elmer hops away, Bugs inadvertently takes Elmer's place and just goes along with it. And that makes it surprisingly underwhelming. The gags are just not really that funny. I guess the whole bit with the psychiatrist would have been a nice little anti-psychiatry commentary, but they fuck that angle up by the end. Because Bugs gets arrested for not paying his taxes. Not only do we have another cartoon where Bugs loses, but we have a painful reminder of the high tax burden in this country. That means nothing because other countries have low tax burdens and are doing much better than us. Anyway, this cartoon could have been better. Rating 2 out of 5 stars with the title of OK but lacks staying power. Past Performance. Or is it Perfumance? Whatever, it's a pretty shitty title. It is about Pepe on the set of a movie in France in 1913. You know this cartoon is banal when the setup is more entertaining than when Pepe enters the picture. Yeah, it is mostly the same shit with Pepe acting rapey toward a cat who he thinks is a skunk. The only two new things that it brings to the table is the movie references, and Pepe actually finds out that the cat is not a skunk. But they manage to fuck that up when Pepe tries to paint white stripes on his back as if he thinks that will work on the cat. I'm just so done with Pepe at this point. Rating 2 out of 5 stars with the title of OK but lacks staying power. Tweety Circus. I don't know what's more shocking. The fact that it took them this long to do a circus-themed cartoon with Tweety or any other one with Bugs, or the fact that it's actually a pretty decent cartoon. For once, they actually provide a solid reason to root against Sylvester, because he kind of went out of his way to crash the circus. Sylvester also realizes why you don't want to fuck with a lion, or an elephant for that matter. There are actually a few clever gags. Tweety still takes a little too much pleasure in seeing Sylvester suffer while trying to be all cutesy, which is why I can't call this anything other than decent. Rating 3 out of 5 stars with the title of Worth Watching. Rabbit Rampage. This cartoon is basically Duck Amuck with Bugs. I won't say it's as good as the other cartoon, but it's still pretty damn good. The biggest difference between Bugs and Daffy is that doesn't even want to do the cartoon and is only doing it because he will lose his contract. This cartoon has more slapstick than Duck Amuck, but it has some pretty colorful and abstract imagery. I also laughed at it pretty consistently. It also has a slightly different ending than Duck Amuck. So overall, I like this one. Rating 4 out of 5 stars with a title of Awesome. Lumberjerks. Another Goofy Gophers cartoon. This is a pretty good one. It is about the Gophers having their home, which is a tree be chopped down. So they try to get it back. It has a pretty charming set of events and good gags. The Gophers find a clever way of stopping the truck that is carrying what's left of the tree, which is now furniture. I love how they have a TV when they get it back, and they say how wonderful television is. That is something I need to hear more often because all my life, all I hear is how television is evil and turns people into idiots. But honestly, American schools turn people into idiots as well as other things. That alone bumps the score up. Rating 4 out of 5 stars with the title of Awesome. This Is a Life? This is a parody of the show This Is Your Life. I've never seen it, so I don't really get it, but Bugs is the one who tells this story, which is how the show works, I think. I'm not a fan of these cartoons that try to go into the past of Bugs. They miss the whole point of Looney Tunes in general. It doesn't help that Bugs is the only character to get this treatment. Daffy would agree with me. To be fair, it is more believable than any of the other times they've done this, because the second half is a pseudo clip show with Elmer and Yosemite Sam. I also think the ending gag was good with Bugs, Elmer, Sam, and Daffy playing hot potato with the bomb. Daffy then says his famous lines. That alone bumps up the score. Rating 3 out of 5 stars with the title of Worth Watching. Double or Mutton. Another Ralph and Sam cartoon. I love these two and wish they had more recognition, and they deliver another damn good cartoon. It is the first to establish the dynamic between Ralph and Sam. To me, they're kind of like wrestlers. They're friends outside of their profession, but competitors when they're doing their thing. Admittedly, some of the beginning gags are pretty weak, but the later ones are fucking awesome. The Canon one and the Acme Hair Grower are standouts. Once again, a damn good cartoon. Rating 4 out of 5 stars with the title of Awesome. Jumpin' Jupiter. I'm a bit mixed on this one. On the one hand, it is another pairing of Sylvester and Porky, and I believe Sylvester has the best dynamic with Porky. They really should have had more cartoons together. On the other hand, it relies on the same gag of Porky not believing Sylvester when he sees something freaky, even though it is real. But this time there's a sci-fi twist, which is admirable. But what is not is the fact that they really push Porky's stupidity way too fucking far for my liking. It doesn't help that Porky never finds out. Still a better cartoon than most of the ones with Tweety, though. Rating 3 out of 5 stars with the title of Worth Watching. A Kitty's Kitty. This is the second Sylvester cartoon in a row. It is not as good as the last one. This time Sylvester tries to escape from a dog who's trying to attack him, but runs into a kid who wants to keep him as a pet. However, the kid is shown to be more harmful to Sylvester than loving. God damn, even when Sylvester's getting someone who loves him, they still want to torture him. I'm so fucking sick of these Sylvester torture porns. It is interesting that Sylvester wants to leave the kid and just get attacked by the dog in the end. I guess all that the people attacking him makes him suicidal. Suddenly this cartoon got really depressing. Rating 2 out of 5 stars with the title of OK But Lacks Staying Power. Hyde and Hare. So this time Bugs is in the story of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. Well, it's not as good as it sounds. Most of it relies on the gag of Bugs thinking Jekyll is going to stop Hyde, not realizing Jekyll is Hyde. First of all, it is out of character for Bugs to be stupid, especially this stupid. I guess the dramatic irony of him never finding out is interesting, but it doesn't explain the fucking weird ending, where it is revealed that Bugs drank the rest of the magic liquid that turned Jekyll into Hyde. Overall, it is a pretty lackluster effort from Bugs. Rating 2 out of 5 stars with the title of Okay But Lacks Staying Power. Dime to Retire. So this cartoon is about Porky staying at a hotel with terrible service and having to pay Daffy just to get the animals eradicated from his room. It is a pretty nice commentary on how hotels give you fucking awful service and being overpriced. I'm also seeing a bit of the greedy Daffy in there. But it ends with Porky doing what we all wish we want to do to the people running terrible hotels. And that is blowing up the people running them. I will admit it's kind of aggravating, but not a unique premise to Looney Tunes. But it's definitely better than the last couple of cartoons. Rating 3 out of 5 stars with the title of Worth Watching. Speedy Gonzales. This is the second appearance of Speedy Gonzales. This time he has the model that we are more familiar with, which is a plus, although I will say his first cartoon is overall better, but this is not too bad. I really like it when one of the Mexican mice says that Speedy is his sister's best friend, but another one says he is a lot of men's sisters' best friends. That implies that he's a ladies' man. Admittedly, some of the gags are not the greatest, but I really thought the landline gag is fucking hilarious. And the ending gag where Sylvester blows up the cheese but ends up actually giving it to the mice is actually pretty clever. I could definitely see why Speedy was a character who caught on. Rating 3 out of 5 stars with the title of Worth Watching. Nightmare Hare. So the premise of this one is that Bugs has a dream that he's in the medieval times. That sounds like a good premise, but Knights Must Fall, this is not. Not even close. The gags in here are way too slow and not that funny. I thought that it was going to pick up when we had the Marilyn Monroe joke, but the rest of the cartoon is just as banal. I guess it is good that Bugs realizes it was a dream, but the cartoon has a weird ending that almost implies that it wasn't. This is the second mediocre Bugs cartoon in a row, which makes me worried. Rating 2 out of 5 stars with the title of Okay But Lacks Staying Power. 2 cents worth. This is the worst Pepe cartoon. No dramatic build-up this time. The very first scene has a man actually paint white paint on the cat, which means that this time it really wasn't her fault. That is so fucked up that I can't put into words how fucked up that is. Anyway, most of it is the same old shit of Pepe being rapey toward the cat. Not only because of the opening, but because of the fact that I am so fucking sick of the Pepe shtick. And that is why this cartoon pisses me off. Especially because, unlike the previous cartoons, we don't even get a satisfying ending. This cartoon absolutely stinks. Rating 0 out of 5 stars with the title of Complete Bullshit. Red Riding Hoodwinked. It is not only another Tweety cartoon, but is a telling of the Little Red Riding Hood story. 2 things that I'm not a fan of. Immediately, it was kind of entertaining when Sylvester has a rivalry with the wolf, and the wolf is pretty forgetful. The slapstick toward the end was also pretty decent, but there is not enough of it, and this cartoon is still pretty fucking lame. It plays the story more in earnest, which is odd because they've satirized it in the past. I guess they warmed up to it, but I will never warm up to it because I never liked it. Rating 2 out of 5 stars with the title of Okay But Lacks Staying Power. Roman Legion Hare. Well, we finally have a good Bugs cartoon. I thought we would never have another good one. This time he goes up against Yosemite Sam in the Roman times. There's some pretty fucking good slapstick, much more frequent than it has been recently. Most of it shows how Sam finds out why you don't want to fuck with lions, because these lions will tear you to fucking pieces. The ending is a little weird with the Roman emperor playing the violin, but it is weird in a good way. But overall, this is a pretty good and creative effort from Bugs. Rating 4 out of 5 stars with the title of Awesome. Air Conditioned. So the premise of this one is that Sylvester is now rich and has $3 million, but but he is advised by Elmer. By the way, this is one of the few cartoons where they are together to investigate money in something. But Sylvester wants to keep his money so that he can save it for something else. Which, honestly, Sylvester is in the right this time. But apparently the cartoon doesn't agree with me. Elmer tries to convince him by saying, we worked long hours for little pay, which lead to less hours with more pay. The only problem is that working less hours and getting more pay was not a result of investing money. It was a result of a better economic system. This cartoon has aged poorly because nowadays we are back to working long hours for little pay. Considering how well capitalism was explained in By Word of Mouse, I am extremely disappointed in this cartoon. Even taking that aside, the cartoon is really not that funny or entertaining. Rating 2 out of 5 stars with the title of OK Black Staying Power. Guided Muscle. Another Wile E. Coyote and Roadrunner cartoon. Honestly, this is the best one. There's a lot of fucking great slapstick gags. There are so many good gags, it is hard to choose my favorite. There's a lot of use of dynamite and big balls used. The oil and feather gag is a highlight. The cannon gag is one too. But the ending gag is also really fucking good and ends on a metafictional level with the ending title card being slightly different. But yeah, this is a really fucking good one. Rating 5 out of 5 stars with the title of Epic. Pappy's Puppy. Oh boy, this is a cartoon where Butch, who I believe is the dog who torments Sylvester, getting a son. I'm really not in love with the concept. Butch immediately teaches his son to bite on cats. Of course, when the son sees Sylvester, he chews on him. Even though Sylvester at this point did nothing wrong. You know, I would argue that Sylvester actually works better as a protagonist rather than as an antagonist. Butch is not any better than Sylvester, and I would argue he is worse. I do think it is interesting that the only dialogue in the cartoon comes from the stork, and there are a few decent slapstick gags. I guess it is pretty satisfying that Sylvester gets to run and shoot the stork, which is the only happy ending this cartoon could have, and that is the only reason it gets a score bumped up. Rating 3 out of 5 stars with the title of Worth Watching. One Froggy Evening. This is an iconic cartoon for a reason, but I think it has an underlying darkness to it. Interestingly, the cartoon has no dialogue. The only words we hear are the songs that the frog sings. He has a very memorable voice, but the man who finds him wants to cash in on his singing ability. The only problem is that the frog only sings for that man. It is almost like when a singer has a lot of talent, but no one really pays attention to their music. They don't make any money from it. Or it could be a musician who refuses to take an opportunity to show their talent because they feel that they're not good enough. It's actually kind of a depressing cartoon if you think about it. In a bitter twist of irony, in the future, he does perform for someone else. This kind of implies that if people do appreciate the talented musician, it is only years later. In that regard, it's actually kind of brilliant. Rating 4 out of 5 stars with the title of Awesome. Bugs' Bonnettes. This is an interesting cartoon. It is basically a combination of a mockumentary about how hats make people behave and a typical Elmer versus Bugs cartoon. And as Elmer and Bugs wear certain hats. These range from pirate hats and military hats to gangster and cop hats, and even girly hats and wedding style hats. The gags are pretty decent. My favorite one has to be the bit when Bugs wears the hat of a gangster. There's a lot of shooting. Honestly, the weakest gag is the ending gag where Bugs and Elmer get married. It ends with Bugs saying that it's always makes a good picture to have a romantic ending. I don't agree with that, but it is pretty fucking hard not to recommend this one because of how unique it is. Rating 3 out of 5 stars with the title of Worth Watching. Too Hop to Handle. This is another Hibbity Hopper cartoon. Well, I have to say, the setup is actually a bit more unique this time. Sylvester is unable to attract mice, so he decides that it's not worth the effort to try to teach his son how to catch a mouse. Well, I have to agree with him on that part. But his son tries to play the Pied Piper to attract mice because apparently that works. Well, Hippity comes in and it devolves into more of the same old shit. The only thing new is that both Sylvester and his son realize that Hippity is not a giant mouse, but a kangaroo. Took them long enough, but that is ruined by the ending where Sylvester gets torn to fucking pieces by the dogs because some sickos thought that was funny. What a crummy way to end the cartoon. Rating 2 out of 5 stars with the title of Okay But Lacks Staying Power. Weasel Stop. So this is another Foghorn cartoon, and it is pretty lackluster. It is about a weasel who tries to eat and go after chickens. But Foghorn tries to get a dog to help him defeat the weasel, but the dog doesn't even care. So Foghorn tries to get a weasel to get a chicken by defeating the dog. Okay, in the previous cartoons, it was obvious that Foghorn didn't know that Henry Hawk wanted to eat him, but it was also obvious where Foghorn was coming from, and what he was trying to do made complete sense. None of what happens in this cartoon can come from any kind of logic. Period. The slapstick when it does come up is decent, but it's actually pretty sparse, and the ending is pretty unsatisfying. Man, Foghorn is really starting to lose his touch. Rating 2 out of 5 stars with the title of Okay But Lacks Staying Power. The High and the Flighty. So this is the second Foghorn Lego cartoon in a row, but it also has the Barnyard Dog. But this time Daffy comes in and tries to sell them practical jokes to both of them. And of course, charging them money for it. It is interesting how Daffy exploits both sides of the conflict. Immediately, the slapstick is not as good as their previous outings, but the train gag is probably the best gag in the cartoon. It also leads to an interesting ending where Foghorn and the Barnyard Dog decide to go after Daffy. The way they get him could have been better, but this is still an improvement over the previous cartoon. Rating 3 out of 5 stars with the title of Worth Watching. Broomstick Bunny. This cartoon is all over the place. It is another pairing of Bugs and Witch Hazel, but this time Witch Hazel takes pleasure in being considered the ugliest woman on earth. Somehow the shit that happened in 2014 and 2016 makes that aspect make way too much sense. I blame Meghan Trainor for that. Anyway, Bugs comes in and basically fucks with Witch Hazel. Immediately, there's not a whole lot of slapstick, but he does try to guilt trip Witch Hazel, which is something that Bugs has not done in a while. The ending would have gone this a lower score, but it ends with Witch Hazel becoming a beautiful sorceress and getting chased by the guy in the mirror, who becomes horny for her. But Bugs actually calls the air raid to tell them about a witch. Tell them about that witch. Honestly, is probably the best thing he could do. A pretty decent Halloween-themed cartoon. Rating 3 out of 5 stars with the title of Worth Watching. Rocket Squad. To be completely honest, I'm a bit mixed on this one. First of all, I love the idea of Daffy and Porky playing detectives in a sci-fi themed film noir. I was always fascinated by the narration that is used in those types of movies. But I also think there are some decent visual gags. I like the references to the UNIVAC computer and the fact that the names on the computer thing are the names of the actual people working on it, including Mel Blanc. I will admit the chase between Daffy, Porky, and that criminal could have been a lot funnier. It also could have led to a better ending. The ending just has Daffy and Porky suffer for literally no reason. It was not even really clear that the guy didn't do it, making this just really fucking confusing. It just punishes you for having any investment, and that's not the sign of a good cartoon. I really want to rank this one higher, but my gut is telling me otherwise. Rating 2 out of 5 stars with the title of Okay But Lacks Staying Power. Tweet and Sour. You know, I will never understand why the dynamic of cartoon characters who realistically do nothing wrong and are being tormented by a cute creature was ever popular in the golden age of animation. Were writers just fucking demented, or did they just expect you to just shut up and not think about it? In the case of this cartoon, Sylvester is basically insulted by Granny pretty fucking viciously, and getting threatened into being turned into violin strings if he tries to hurt Tweety, which is pretty fucking sick if you think about it. Sylvester really tries to protect Tweety. Most of the cartoon is Tweety being tormented by another cat, and Sylvester tries to stop that cat and protect Tweety. There's a pretty decent slapstick in that part. But Sylvester makes it clear that he's not a nice cat, and he's only trying to save his skin. I guess if someone continually insults you, you start to believe that you're not a good person. But even after all that, Granny still thinks Sylvester is trying to eat Tweety, even though he really wasn't. If it weren't for that cruel ending, this cartoon might have been decent, or even really good, but they just had to fuck that up with that ending. Rating 2 out of 5 stars with the title of OK but Lacks Staying Power. Heaven Sent. Another Pepe cartoon. Yeah, this is more of the same old shit with Pepe acting rapey toward a cat who he thinks is a skunk. But this time she intentionally gets the paint on her. This time for literally no reason. I don't even know what to say about this one. Although the ending is weird because the cat just goes down a tunnel only to disappear and not be seen again. Also, the sign implies that Pepe got her cornered, which is actually pretty terrifying. Anyway, it's mediocre. Rating 2 out of 5 stars with the title of OK but Lacks Staying Power. Mixed Master. What the actual fuck is this cartoon? This is about a guy who getting a dog even though he already has a dog. Which is a bad idea because dogs are very territorial animals and they hate other dogs. He is a total dumbass. And of course he has a smart wife. And I fucking hate this dynamic. And I fucking hate that it is used so often and people fucking dig it. What the fuck is wrong with people? The dialogue in this is shit. The dog is basically a silent version of Charlie Dog. But the ending is so goddamn bad. This cartoon is awful. Rating 1 out of 5 stars with the title of Horrible. Rabbitson Crusoe. This is a pretty decent cartoon. This time we have Yosemite Sam getting stuck on an island and he runs into bugs. Sam is tired of eating coconuts, so he tries to cook bugs. And, well, there's also a barracuda or a shark. One of the two. Anyway, the gags in here are decent. Not really slapstick heavy, but a major improvement over the last couple of cartoons. I think the tidal wave was probably the best fucking gag in the cartoon. I do think Roman Legion hair is a bit better, but this ain't too bad. But I also think it has a good ending, which has actually been pretty rare lately. Rating 3 out of 5 stars with the title of Worth Watching. Gee Whiz. This is a pretty fucking good one. It is with Wile E. Coyote and the Roadrunner. I love that the opening credits are interlaced with the Coyote and Roadrunner doing their thing. It also has some really fucking good slapstick gags. Coyote actually has some clever things he tries to use with the dynamite, like a fishing reel and an extending thingy. There are a few gags that seem like they're reusing previous gags, but they do go in a different direction, so I can't complain, and that is actually a pretty clever way of getting around them. The ending gag is also pretty damn good. As for right now, the Roadrunner and Coyote are really the only ones, one of the few around this era that are consistently good. Rating 4 out of 5 stars with the title of Awesome. Tree Corner Tweety. The idea of Tweety narrating the story unfolding might have been kind of clever if it weren't for the fact that Tweety is a literal psychopath who uses his cuteness to disguise the fact that he's a cruel bastard who likes to beat up cats. I know you all are thinking I'm thinking way too deeply about these cartoons, but that's kind of the problem. When you are making a cartoon where you expect the audience to just shut up and not think about the implications, you're kind of saying to not have people do their little jobs. I mean, Sylvester opens the door and the off-screen woman just acts like a total bitch toward Sylvester. It wasn't like she even knew him. But I guess I shouldn't be surprised because that's how people see Sylvester. I guess the pie gags and the military themed gags are good, but the ending is pretty lame. So yeah, this is pretty mediocre. Rating 2 out of 5 stars with the title of OK but Lacks Staying Power. The Unexpected Pest. Well, I have to say, this one is not too bad. I would have chalked this one up to be another Sylvester torture porn, but the ending actually made this one a bit better. You see, the premise of this one is that Sylvester is in danger of being thrown out. So he finds a mouse, but when the mouse begs Sylvester not to eat him and he'll do whatever he wants, Sylvester relents. So Sylvester has the mouse scare the owners, and he is not replaced until he accidentally throws some dynamite toward one of the owners. He does get kicked out, but the mouse tries to guilt trip Sylvester into saving him, but Sylvester doesn't fall for that trick. The mouse says, after all that cat's been through, I think he deserves a happy ending. This one line from the mouse actually makes this cartoon kind of brilliant. I wouldn't say this is the best, but it is a bit better than the last Sylvester cartoon. Rating 3 out of 5 stars with a title of Worth Watching. Napoleon Bunny Part. This is a pretty damn good cartoon. This time, Bugs somehow ends up in France and has to face Napoleon Bonaparte. This is a pretty fucking fun premise for a cartoon. It has some damn good gags, including one where one of the dumb soldiers accidentally gets stabbed in the ass by a bayonet. Napoleon's voice is hilarious. There's also a good amount of slapstick. Bugs dressing up as a woman and a good bit with the guillotine. So much good shit. It's not the best Bugs cartoon, but it's actually pretty good. Rating 4 out of 5 stars with the title of Awesome. Tugboat Granny. You know, it is fucking amazing how you take Tweety, a character who is pretty violent and sadistic, and then you try your best to tone him down to be softer and somehow make him even more evil than he was previously. At least the earlier Tweety was honest about being sadistic. This new Tweety tries to play up the persona of being a cute little birdie. But the fact that he takes a disturbing amount of pleasure in seeing Sylvester suffer prevents me from ever liking him, especially since all Sylvester wanted to do was get on the tugboat. Sure, he wanted to eat Tweety, but that's how cats are. I guess I like the tugboat theme, but other than that, most of it is just another Sylvester torture porn. Rating 2 out of 5 stars with the title of OK But Lacks Staying Power. Stupid Duck. This is actually a pretty good cartoon. This time Daffy tries his hand at a Superman parody. Only unlike Super Rabbit, Daffy seems to be causing more trouble than helping, but his heart is in the right place. He just doesn't realize that Aardvark Radish is not real. It does lead to some pretty fucking good slapstick though. Even though it is the same gag again and again, they managed to get pretty creative with the scenario, so I can't complain. Like, blowing up a bridge doesn't seem like something you would ever want to do, but it is revealed to be part of a movie. The rocket gag is the perfect gag to end on. It's not the best Daffy cartoon, but it's still pretty damn good. Rating 4 out of 5 stars with the title of Awesome. Barbary Coast Bunny. This is a pretty decent Bugs cartoon. I would have liked it to be about the Barbary War, but it seems like that has been a pretty forgotten American war, so I guess that's understandable. Anyway, it's about Bugs running into a big rock of gold, but Nancy Cananza, in his final performance, tries to steal the gold from Bugs by gambling it. Little does he know that Bugs has some pretty damn good luck when gambling. It is actually pretty funny when he does. I would not say it's as good as the previous Bugs cartoon, but it's still a fine one to watch. Rating 3 out of 5 stars with the title of Worth Watching. Rocket Bye Baby. So the premise of this one is that a baby from Mars is accidentally sent to a couple on Earth, and vice versa. I guess I will give it credit for being more creative than Goo Goo Goliath, but honestly it suffers from the same problems as that cartoon. I don't give a shit about the story, and the gags are not that funny. It ends pretty much how you would expect it to end. This is not a cartoon that I would ever rewatch. Rating 2 out of 5 stars with the title of OK But Lacks Staying Power. Half Fair Hair. This is like a winter hobo themed version of Wakiki Rabbit. Now that sounds good on paper, but this is honestly pretty lame. The slapstick is very sparse. Although I do like the crocodile gag, and I guess the ending punchline is okay. I guess I do like the winter aesthetic, but overall, I didn't laugh that much in this cartoon. The dialogue is really nothing special, and it just makes me want to watch Wakiki Rabbit again. Rating 2 out of 5 stars with the title of OK Black Staying Power. Raw Raw Rooster. This is actually a pretty decent Foghorn cartoon. Foghorn has to deal with a fucking annoying and douchey, to be honest, fellow college student named Rhode Island Red. He constantly plays practical jokes on Foghorn that usually involve him getting hurt for no fucking reason. As someone who's had a family member do that to me, I'm totally on board for Foghorn trying to get his revenge. Of course, most of the cartoon is him failing to do that, and honestly, I think it would have been funnier if he actually succeeds, because he really doesn't deserve this treatment. But Foghorn eventually has one of his traps works in the end, so I guess I can't complain. Not the best, but still worth checking out. Rating 3 out of 5 stars with the title of Worth Watching. The Slap Hopping Mouse. Just another hippity hopper cartoon, but this time Sylvester and his son are living in a mansion and go to an abandoned house to catch some mice. But unlike Lighthouse Mouse, it does nothing interesting with the location and does the same old hippity hopper shit. I guess the dialogue between Sylvester and his son is decent, and the gun gag is kind of clever, but other than that, it is still pretty mediocre, much like the other hippity hopper cartoons. Rating 2 out of 5 stars with the title of OK Black Staying Power. A Star is Bored. So this is a pretty interesting cartoon. It is about Daffy getting so pissed about how Bugs is getting all the attention that he demands to be in a movie. However, this backfires when Daffy seems to only get roles where he gets maimed in some kind of way. First of all, he gets to play Bugs' stunt double in one of his cartoons. There are some decent gags surrounding this, but eventually he gets the starring role in a movie called The Duck, where he gets shot by hunters, and the ending punchline is pretty clever. I'm not sure if I like the idea of Daffy getting hurt for simply wanting some attention, but it is pretty clever, so I can't complain. After all, Bob Clampett once said that Bugs Bunny is who we want to be. Daffy is who we are. I think that's true. Rating 3 out of 5 stars with the title of Worth Watching. Deduce, you say. This is another detective parody, but this time it's a lot closer to Sherlock Holmes. This one is a little bit better than Rocket Squad. The first half of the cartoon is pretty good, with Porky's narration and some decent gags. I do think the stuff with the slasher guy is a little weak, however. Also, the twist of the woman at the bar being his mother is kind of stupid. But I do like it when Porky asks, "When did you learn to be a detective?" And Daffy says, "In elementary school," which makes way too much sense. Not my favorite, but still worth checking out. Rating 3 out of 5 stars with the title of Worth Watching. Yankee Doodit. This cartoon is pretty fucking stupid. It has Elmer lead a group of elves, and the situation is that whenever a stone owner says Jehoshaphat, they turn into a mouse. But the only way to turn them back into an elf is to say Rumpelstiltskin. The only problem is they keep forgetting the word, even though it's the easiest fucking thing to remember. If you're really stumped, you can just think about what is the guy who tries to take the woman's child away in that fairy tale. It is that fucking simple. I guess I like how the store owner of the shop actually gets taught capitalism from Elmer. But the cartoon manages to fuck that up with the ending with that same joke. But this time, it is Elmer forgetting the name to turn back into the elf. This makes no fucking sense. Yeah, this cartoon is pretty bad. Rating 1 out of 5 stars with the title of Horrible. Widio Wabbit. So this cartoon is where Bugs gets a chance to be on television, but he finds out that it's really a show for Elmer hunting rabbits. But Bugs doesn't want that, so he basically does what he normally does. That is, fuck with Elmer. Admittedly, the gags are not as good as the previous cartoons, and even a little tasteless. More specifically, the show You Beat Your Wife. But the later gags are better and have some real energy that has kind of been lacking in these recent cartoons. The ending gag is pretty satisfying, where Bugs tricks Elmer into a role reversal. So this is a pretty decent cartoon. Rating 3 out of 5 stars with the title of Worth Watching. There They Go, Go, Go. This one is actually a little weaker than the previous Wile E. Coyote and Roadrunner cartoons. The setup takes a little too long for my liking, and the slapstick doesn't have as much punch as it usually does. That's not to say there are no good gags, though. I do like the gun gag, which I think is the first time the coyote uses a gun trap to get the Roadrunner. The rocket gags are always fun. I even like how Coyote uses a wheel with dynamite. That is pretty fucking clever. Admittedly, the rock gag could have been a little better, though. While not the greatest from the duo, it's still worth checking out. Rating 3 out of 5 stars with the title of Worth Watching. Two Crows from Tacos. This one is not as bad as I thought it would be. It is about two Mexican ducks going after a grasshopper. Don't get me wrong, the beginning is fucking horrible. It is just them singing a Mexican song, and they do not have good singing voices. But once we get to the grasshopper part, there is some decent slapstick in it. I wouldn't consider this one anywhere near the best Looney Tunes cartoon, but it went in a direction in the end that I didn't expect, and honestly, it could have been a lot worse. Rating 3 out of 5 stars with the title of Worth Watching. The Honey Mousers. So this is a cartoon done in the style of the sitcom The Honeymooners. I've never seen The Honeymooners, so I'm not familiar with it. But I will say, it is strictly better than having it be another fucking cartoon to have a cutesy mouse outsmarting a mean old cat. I didn't really laugh at this cartoon, but I found the ending actually pretty clever, and it ultimately gave this cartoon a higher rating. So yeah, it's a decent watch. Rating 3 out of 5 stars with the title of Worth Watching. To Hair is Human. This is actually a pretty fucking good one. It is another cartoon with both Bugs and Wile E. Coyote. Not sure why they didn't collaborate more, but it is always fun to see them. And of course, this is one of the few where Coyote talks. Anyway, the slapstick gags in here are fucking awesome. But what makes this one stand out is that we have Coyote use a UNIVAC computer, and there's a lot of use of dynamite. But the ending gag with the boulder is a really damn good gag. And the final line by Bugs is hilarious. So yeah, this is a damn good cartoon. Rating 4 out of 5 stars with the title of Awesome. The Three Little Bops. This is basically a jazz version of the story of the Three Little Pigs. I will say it's a bit better than Pigs in a Polka. I really do like the rhythm this cartoon has. It is very energetic, although I really don't like how the wolf really wants to play in the band, but the pigs won't let him. I mean, yeah, he is a little off key with the trumpet, but he honestly could be a lot worse at it. But of course, the story pretty much goes exactly how the Three Little Pigs story goes. Although the one change is that the wolf plays the trumpet pretty well in the afterlife, and they give him credit anyway. It is also a nice touch that it is never actually stated, but the wolf goes to hell, and it is kind of a reminder that jazz was seen as evil music at one point. But I guess the pigs are going to hell as well, but they don't seem to mind. That is kind of fucking interesting. Rating 3 out of 5 stars with the title of Worth Watching. Tweet Zoo. So this is another strange case where the beginning and ending are the best parts of this cartoon. The beginning has a zookeeper give a tour for the people at the zoo and delivers his lines in a deadpan kind of way, which is actually pretty clever. Although once Tweety and Sylvester come in, it honestly goes downhill. Most of this is the same old shit of Sylvester getting tormented by other animals. The fact that Tweety takes so much delight in Sylvester's misery once again makes it so that I can never see Tweety as anything other than a psychopath. But after all that, Sylvester gets so pissed that he decides to stop eating birds. But of course, birds come in to him. Admittedly, that was a clever joke. I guess it is better than the last one with the two. Rating 3 out of 5 stars with the title of Worth Watching. Scrambled Eggs. Another Roadrunner and Wile E. Coyote outing. This is a pretty fucking good one. It has some good slapstick gags. The dynamite lasso gag was pretty good. The two boulder gags are good too. The steamrolling gag actually has a good payoff. But in between, we have a really damn good cannon gag. This is definitely a bit better than the last one with the duo, which means it's pretty damn good. Rating 4 out of 5 stars with the title of Awesome. Alibaba Bunny. This is the other Arabian Nights themed cartoon with Bugs, but this time he is joined by Daffy. And it is about them trying to go to a beach resort only to stumble upon golden jewels. But to be honest, the setup is way better than the cartoon itself. I just felt the gags weren't really all that good. The slapstick is pretty scarce, and the dialogue isn't good enough to make me look past that. Aladdin is Lamp is much better, and even has a more clever title. I've also seen the whole greedy Daffy routine before, and I'm getting tired of it. Rating 2 out of 5 stars with the title of OK Black Staying Power. Go Fly a Kit. This cartoon is actually pretty charming. So the premise of this one is that a female kitten is waiting for her kitten who actually knows how to fly. But one man tells the story of how that kitten was able to fly. Basically, he was raised by a hawk and saw the female kitten be chased by a dog. He saved her from that bastard dog. The slapstick is actually pretty damn good. Not amazing, but better than it usually is. It also has an ending that is kind of sweet, although I could really do it without the touch of the fact that they had kittens. But this is actually a kind of a breath of fresh air. Rating 3 out of 5 stars with the title of Worth Watching. Tweety and the Beanstalk. This is a cartoon where Tweety and Sylvester are in the tale of Jack and the Beanstalk. It suffers from a lot of the same problems as Lumberjack Rabbit. The gags in here are pretty fucking boring, and it does the Tweety and Sylvester formula with a gimmick, but never really makes the gags all that good. Besides, I'm so sick of the formula at this point that it doesn't really stand out. Not the worst cartoon ever, but I'm definitely not rewatching this one anytime soon. Rating 2 out of 5 stars with the title of OK Black Staying Power. Bedeviled Rabbit. This is another appearance of the Tasmanian Devil. To be honest, this one is not as good as the last one. To be fair, the beginning is really good, where Bugs is dropped off to Tasmania and learns about the Tasmanian Devil. There's a book that lists all the things that the Tasmanian Devil eats. Some of the slapstick is good. I do like how Bugs disguises himself as an Italian restaurant waiter, although the dynamite gag could have been better. But the cartoon really fucked up with the ending gag. It is so bad, it single-handedly gave this one a lower score and kind of ruins the cartoon. I didn't care for this one. Rating 2 out of 5 stars with the title of OK Black Staying Power. Boyhood Days. This is basically another cartoon featuring Ralph. You know, that imaginative kid from A to Z. Anyway, this one is not as good as the other one, but there are some things that I do like about it. I think anyone can relate to being blamed for something that you know you didn't do. Much like that other cartoon, it features dream sequences. They're not as good as the other cartoon, but they have some imagination to them. They don't have as much action, and it is kind of fucking cringe to have the cannibalistic African tribe capture his parents. But the idea that Ralph pretends to have a role reversal of the parenting roles is such kid logic, which is interesting. The Alien Dream is a bit better, though it is light on action. The ending is also weird as hell, but is satisfying, all things considered, because his father lets him off the hook. It seems like the father is nicer to Ralph than his mother. I hate to say it, but there is some truth to that. A pretty decent cartoon. Rating 3 out of 5 stars with the title of Worth Watching. Cheez-It the Cat. It's another cartoon with the honeymooner-style mice. Although I will say, having Ralph throw a surprise birthday party for his wife is a charming idea. Much more charming than the previous one. The slapstick gags are decent. They're not as good as they used to be, but they are not bad. I like the tank gag and the sink dispenser gag. The invisible ink gag is pretty stupid, but overall it's not that bad of a cartoon, and it has a decent ending. Rating 3 out of 5 stars with the title of Worth Watching. Fox Terror. So we have another appearance from Foghorn and the Barnyard Dog, and this might be their best appearance in a while. This time there's a fox trying to steal some chickens, but there's a bell to ring whenever the chickens see a fox. The Barnyard Dog is tasked with guarding the chickens. The only problem is that the fox runs away before the Barnyard Dog sees him. The fox also fucks with Foghorn too. For the second time in a row, Foghorn and the Barnyard Dog are forced to team up. I actually really fucking like this idea. The slapstick gags are pretty good. The poem joke is so goddamn good, and the final gag where Foghorn and the Barnyard Dog shoot the fox was fucking priceless. Even though I'm sick of foxes being the villains in the cartoons, it is still a pretty goddamn good cartoon. Rating 4 out of 5 stars with the title of Awesome. Piker's Peak. This cartoon is pretty decent. The premise is that Yosemite Sam wants to climb the Alps for a prize of 50,000 Cronkites. But Bugs goes and tries to fuck it up for him, so he can climb it first. It is not really slapstick heavy, but there are a few decent gags with the boulder. I particularly like the running gag when Sam falls to the bottom and the band starts playing as if they think he won. But the ending punchline really makes this cartoon worth checking out. It even carries over into the end screen, which is a nice touch. Overall, not amazing, but a pretty decent cartoon. Rating 3 out of 5 stars with the title of Worth Watching. Steel Wool. Another Ralph and Sam cartoon. Now this one I have seen prior to doing this, and it is very nostalgic to me. This is the first cartoon I've ever seen with a duo, and it is very damn good. It has plenty of really fucking good slapstick gags, and the wrestler-type relationship Ralph and Sam have continues to fascinate me. The Dynamite Bridge gag is a really fucking good gag, and it has a pretty decent accordion cartoon gag. The cannon gags and that really fucking long gag with the boulders and the trees tumbling over Ralph are all really fucking wild. It leads to a damn good ending where Sam offers to take 2 jobs because Ralph is working too hard. Not sure how that shit works, but hey, it shows that Sam is a really nice sheepdog. A damn good cartoon. Rating 4 out of 5 stars with the title of Awesome. Boston Quacky. You know, this is probably the best Daffy and Porky cartoon yet. I know I may piss off some fans of the other ones, but this is really the first good one. It has Daffy on a vacation with a woman who wants to marry him. But Porky comes in with a last-minute assignment to make sure a suitcase doesn't fall into the wrong hands. What makes this one so good is that it is just so fucking charming. It actually has some damn good slapstick gags with a tinge of dark humor implemented, most notably on the train. It also has a damn good ending punchline. So yeah, I'm glad we got a good cartoon. Rating 4 out of 5 stars with the title of Awesome. And that'll do it for part 8. As you can see, there was a bit of a decline in quality, but still, it's not the worst it's going to be. We're going to get there. No, don't worry. But at least we ended on a good cartoon. Anyway, I'm Spike Robot. If you like this video, you can subscribe to my channel and feel free to support me on Patreon and follow me on Instagram. Support me on Patreon, you get exclusive updates on my next video. And if you follow me on Instagram, you can see all the pictures I took in Venice, Italy, so go check those out if you want. See you next time on The Freedom Jingos.